Rule 6, embrace diversity. One of the things that Joe mentioned as he looked at the science is that token diversity is not diversity. And what we would say is that diversity is not the same thing as inclusion. When you talk about inclusion in a meeting sense, what you're really talking about is engagement. And we know from the practice perspective that when leaders come to us, the number one question they ask is how to increase engagement in their meetings. So the impression that we have, at least, is that most leaders want to do the right thing, right? That most people running meetings actually want the people they've invited to go ahead and participate, to engage, to share their ideas. But without any of these definition cues, like we talked about under Rule 2, you have people coming to the meeting where they don't know why it's relevant to them. They're not prepared to participate, and they're not going to. So that's one of your barriers. And another of the barriers is a lack of structure. So as we talked about for Rule 5, if you just say, hey, what are your ideas? Well, you're limited by who speaks up first. Whereas when you apply an appropriate structure, you can get all kinds of engagement from everyone. So engagement in meetings is something that takes a certain amount of skill and structure to pull off. But that's not all that's involved. And to help illustrate that a little bit, I want to tell you about something that happens to me on a fairly frequent basis. So I was giving a talk at a workshop, and we were talking very much about this topic, about how to increase engagement, specifically by creating a structure for the first 5 minutes of your meeting that makes sure that every single person speaks within that first 5 minutes. So setting that frame of inclusion and participation. And afterwards, one of the people in the workshop came up to me and she said, I really want my team to engage. I'm really trying. And I have tried doing an icebreaker question, and I have tried starting meetings in silence, and I tried playing some frisky music to see if that would give them some more energy. And every time they kind of do what I'm asking them to do, but then they look at me funny, and then it goes back to being exactly the same thing. So which should I try next? Because you keep saying these exercises work, but they're not working for me. My team is not engaging. And I looked at her and I asked what feels like an obvious question, but it just so isn't, which is, have you told them what you're trying to do? Right? Have you asked them to participate, and that you're trying all of these things as ways to make your meetings more engaging? And, the answer was that she hadn't. That hadn't really occurred to her. So the advice, of course, is to let people know what to expect. And that part of that expectation is that they are expected to engage, right? So to create true inclusion in meetings in a practice perspective requires 3 things. First, you have to have that clarity of expectation. People have to know that they are not only welcome to engage, but expected to engage. Second, they need the opportunity. So that icebreaker at the beginning is an opportunity, but you also need to find ways to structure the rest of the conversation that make sure that everybody has a chance to have input. And finally, this stuff takes practice. If you've got a team that has been able, like my engineering team from Rule 2, to come into meetings and sit there quietly the whole time and then leave, well, they've gotten no practice speaking up in front of that group. They've had no opportunity to do so, and that changing that expectation and changing that skill is going to take some time. So clarity of the expectation, opportunity to participate, and practice. Start there.